Welcome to Focus on Business, a podcast show for photographers with me, your host, Jane Goodrich. I'm talking to successful photographers so you can learn from our experiences and have the business of your dreams. So join us and let's focus on business. Well, hi, welcome. I am so super excited to actually finally meet in person. And You guys will see her is Rachel Stoddard, and she is unbelievably such a great influence in our industry. If you haven't joined her Facebook group, Reverie and Oak, or bought her presets, you are missing out. She's just an amazing wedding photographer and an amazing editor, educator, and I'm just so excited, as you can tell, to welcome.
I'm so excited to be here too, Jane. Thank you so much for having me. I can't wait to chat.
Oh, yeah. Well, we've been chatting before, and I said I have to start recording this. I'll be here all day. So tell the audience a little bit about yourself if they haven't heard about you, and what got you into photography. I'd love to hear your story.
So I'm not a big name photographer. I never was. I live in the Midwest. I've always just been your average sort of photographer. I started in 2006, albeit not profitably. Started in 2006 though. And I started doing families, babies, just anything that would come along, and ended up in weddings. So we've sort of retired at this point, although I'm still doing my long-term clientele just because I love them, and if they call and ask, I'm going to say yes. But retiring to focus on the preset brand and free education for newer photographers. I just think it's so needed. You can find things on YouTube if you search and piece it out, but there's nothing that's just, okay, let's start here at the beginning, and I'm going to walk you all the way through. Anything like that is behind a huge paywall, thousands of dollars. And I love to teach, so I just figure, why not go that direction?
And you're an amazing resource. And it's a positive group, which I love, and realistic too, which I like.
Yep.
How did you get into photography? What made you just pick up a camera and, I love this, I'm going to do it as a job?
The first experience I had with photography, I was about 10 years old maybe, and with a little disposable camera. And do you remember troll dolls?
Yes.
The ugly little dolls with the hair.
Sure.
I loved those. It's so funny that now that's what we had back then, was these ugly little troll dolls. Now girls have Bratz dolls and cute little. We had trolls. So
we had the worst one were the Cabbage Patch Kids and the Garbage
and they were
Kids.
so ugly. Yeah,
so ugly, but they're so cool.
Yeah, for sure. My mom would buy me disposable cameras, and I would set them up with a backdrop, make a little shadow box, and set my troll. It sounds so stupid, but set my trolls out. And take my little disposable camera, and then we go and get them printed, and I was so proud of them. And so that's where it started. And then my mom, when I was an older teenager, bought a Nikon D70, which was so exciting, a real camera. I just dove into learning the exposure triangle and anything I could learn. Yeah, so I've always loved photography. But then I graduated high school, and it just didn't seem like an option. Anytime I would mention that as an option, people would say, don't you want to go for something where you'll make money, or you're going to be a starving artist? And that got into my head. And so I thought, well, that's not an option. Yeah, back then we weren't encouraged to go after our dreams. We really weren't. We were encouraged to do something that would make money.
Yeah.
So I did that and was so unhappy in the corporate world that I thought, screw it. Well, like, what's the worst that could happen? Let me just try. And now here we are. So, yeah.
20 years later.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah.
Well, apart from telling all those people to shut up after high school, if you were to travel back in time, I love the fact that you sort of played around to find your genre, as we call it. What would you do differently? Well, what would you tell yourself? Hey, don't do that.
I would not have shot for free for so long, which I did because, let's go back a little bit. So I worked at a hospital for about 10 years and I just had that huge network of people, and I was obsessed with editing. I would find myself shooting anything just to get into, I actually couldn't afford Photoshop, and Lightroom didn't exist back then. So couldn't afford Photoshop, but there's a program called GIMP, GIMP, and it's the free source version of Photoshop. So I just wanted new material to edit and like practice editing. So I shot everyone for free. I would just be, do you want to have a photo shoot? And so that's how I started to learn. And most people would insist on tipping me. And even that, I felt like, oh, I'm not a photographer. I'm not a real photographer. I would go back and be like, you were a real photographer. People printed those photos and put them on their wall, So yeah, I would definitely go back and value myself from the beginning.
Yeah, well, we won't talk about you. I mean, you started editing on GIMP, and I am going to say that I could start editing on iPhone.
Yeah. A lot of us did back then. There was no Lightroom, so we had to do something.
There was no Lightroom, and Photoshop was very complicated to learn. Yeah. For me, it was like, oh, I'm learning this and learning that. And I mean, I outsource my editing now, so anyway. I do have access to Lightroom, though. I did, I promise. And Photoshop. I believe you. I did. I mean, this was a long time ago. So you're in the Midwest. I always love asking this question. And you say you're retired, but let's pretend that you're not retired and that you're going to move to, give you a warm place, right? Florida.
Yeah, please do. Okay, Florida.
In 3 months, you're moving. What would you do to start your wedding photography business in Florida?
I would want to be there physically if I could. I would want to maybe take a couple of trips and vacation in the spot that I was going to live, just to try to meet some people. I think that people are a form of marketing. One person turns into 50 people. So the person in front of you is not just the person in front of you. It's everybody that they happen to, to mention you to. So I would just try to go down there and get in front of people. Maybe even just hop in on a yoga class and just meet some people. I really think that's the best way to get yourself out there. Once someone hears your name and they remember you, they won't forget it. If they are having a wedding, then they'll at least remember you and maybe look you up. So I think I would try to take some actual trips.
I love that. And I love the fact that you actually mentioned, I'll probably just take a yoga class. Because what I like about that is you're doing something that you normally would do. You're introducing yourself, and you just never know who you're going to meet. And not everybody is going to be the one that's referring you. Like I remember when I first started, I tried a lot of things. And I remember being so excited about this sweet shop that opened in town. And I had all my images all over the place. And I'd spent so much money putting them up there and done like 3 shoots for them. I thought this is it. I got 3 requests for dog donation societies or something. But I was like, so certain things grew and grew and grew. People are like, oh, well, I did see your photos in that place. But then some might be an awareness building, but some might be that gold mine that you have no idea that, oh, she's actually a wedding planner.
Yep.
Started chatting with her and no big deal.
Yeah, you just never know.
So as you grew your business, so you probably have a favorite form of marketing. I love asking this question, especially nowadays. What would you say you only had to do one thing? What would it be?
So back when I started photography, there was, I don't know if there was no Facebook or maybe it was just brand new, but I didn't know about Facebook when I started photography. So it wasn't even a thing. Instagram, I'm pretty sure wasn't a thing either.
No.
So I started out having to market myself. Back then, I think you could buy at a diner, they have the little paper.
You had the app.
Not napkins, but you could buy like a little ad there, or you could put yourself in like the back page in the newspaper, but that never seemed like, so I learned to just rely on people, talking to people, just mentioning. And when you're talking about what you love doing, I think it's easy. People really, and I still, even with the preset and everything today, I still do that. I focus on whoever's in front of me, and that one person is not just one person. That one person is actually 100 people. And then each one of those people is also 100 people. And so it's just this huge network. So I would say people and word of mouth is your best form of marketing. I mean, SEO and stuff too, but I'm not good at that. So
I go into that in a few times, but I really do think that trying to, and I call them kind of like my brand advocate, because people buy from people, especially nowadays, and especially we're a service. And I think getting confident enough to say, I'm a photographer, especially when you're first starting out, is key.
Absolutely.
In front of the mirror, practice it. I'm a photographer. I'm a family photographer. I'm a newborn photographer. I'm a wedding photographer.
You are. If you take photos, you are a photographer.
Yeah.
That took me so long to say and say it with confidence. Still, even sometimes after all this time, I'll say it and it'll feel kind of inauthentic or something. Why? I don't understand. Imposter syndrome, I guess.
I don't know if it's imposter syndrome or if it's more, is it real? Prior to being a photographer, I was in corporate America, but it's more advertising. And so I still, to this day, and I quit 2010. It's still in my head. I'm like, I work in advertising. I'm like, no, you have a photography business. You're a photographer. Get it in your head.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah.
Yes.
I think that's good for new photographers to know that if somebody like you who's been in it forever feels that way, it's normal to feel that way and just push through it and you can call yourself a photographer. Yeah.
Yeah, you're allowed to say it. And whether you sort of still don't believe it, because I don't matter. My older sister was the photographer in the family, so I still think it's like that. But I would just recommend anybody sort of going out there and just saying you're a photographer and then pull up your website or pull up your Instagram feed, because they'll ask you, oh, what do you photograph? And I'm like, handily, well, this is me. And then they'll look at the images and be like, oh, wow, so-and-so.
And you have to remember, too, that the average layperson isn't critiquing photos the way that we do. So if you're taking a nice photo, they're going to be wowed.
Yeah.
Just period.
I saw somebody the other day and she's been in business 25 years and she still has imposter syndrome. And you're always going to be like, oh, my work's not good enough. You have to kind of get over that. As a photographer with a business, you have to be able to sell yourself. And if you start self-deprecating or like, oh, I don't like that image or this, that, and the other, or you're afraid to show it, it'll come across as not being confident. So show it as if it's like the best thing since sliced bread.
Make it until you make it. You just
put your sales hat on. I always joke because I do actually, I don't have it on me right now, but I have this rainbow poop hat sometimes for my kids' shoots. It's my shoot hat. When I'm on a shoot, I am silly Jane, basically crazy Jane. I have a twin sister who works in finance, a little bit more straightforward than me. Are you always? Oh, and I'm like, I'm like, but I'm getting you the smile, right? They love me. So
that's hilarious.
Yeah, it's kind of embarrassing. I did actually add £10 to his face for that. No, he's a great client, but I did. You £10. You want an extra double chin on there? Very good.
There you go.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I'm cheeky.
I love it.
He has a twin, a boy-girl twin, and he has boy-girl twins. So he's like, I hated when photographers would make us hug and kiss. So I would do it to his kid every year just to piss him off. I'm like, see, that's what you get. Yeah. So being a photographer, when did you go kind of full-time into it? Or was it always part-time? Or how do you balance that? Or when did you think, no, I'm going to do it full-time?
So actually, I was working at the hospital still, and I was married and had a small child. I filed for divorce in January 1 year. I can't remember the exact year. I think I've blocked some of it out. You know what I mean? So it's a hard time. And then the very next month, I got laid off from my job of 10 years, and it was a good job. Back then, it was like I was making $20 an hour, which back then was really good. And so now I'm getting a divorce. I have no job. I didn't have anything to lose. In fact, I had to make money. So that's kind of when I started. Yeah, it was the push that I needed, because I don't think I would have left that job because it was so easy. And there was no patient contact. It was all behind the scenes. It was great money. I loved the people, so I never would have quit.
Right.
So thank God.
Yeah. And the universe was sending you in a completely different direction of you start with new energy. And God, I just really think, Rachel.
I truly think if something is going wrong in your life, it's probably going right. You just have to hang in there. Hang in there and find out. But your world could be exploding, and you're going to someday realize it was the best thing. You just got to hang in there. Yeah.
I wholeheartedly agree. And during this time, especially we're seeing a recession and people are like struggling to get bookings.
Yeah.
I'll say my advertising days is like those companies or the businesses, the brands actually stayed marketing themselves, sort of invested in themselves throughout any recession do so much better once the recession is out of it. So if you just ride it, and if you keep your business open, or if you take on some part-time work, because not everybody can just, hey, I'm just going to quit my job and be a photographer full-time. You can't.
Yeah, exactly.
It takes time to build the business and awareness, and you were lucky, right? You sort of had already built your net.
Yeah.
Right?
I had built it, yeah.
I started too soon. I know that. I wish I'd have sort of had another year of cushion to sort of like get my brand awareness going, because it's not an overnight success. You can't just put up a Facebook post and say, oh, my mini sessions. No, it's going to take time.
It's a lot of work. But when you think about any other career that you go into, you're looking at least probably 4 years. So, if you take 1 or even 2 years to invest in your photography career, it's still a lot less than if you were to go into nursing or anything else. So, I think people should remember that too. It's okay to take a year or 2 and invest in yourself, and then launch when you're proud of your work, you're sure of yourself. You can launch it at prices that will keep you going, I mean, everybody wants overnight success, but no one thinks about that. I don't think, anyway, that every other career has a period where you have to go through the ringer and just do it. It's okay.
It's also like the awareness stage, brand mapping. What are you doing to build awareness? Okay, you have a website. I outsource my SEO and blogging because I can't read for, like, I was doing a sentence together. Thanks, Mom. No hard always told me that. But it's also very technical, because like I got Google blocks. I was just blogging every session with no words, and people were like, then Google blocked me. So I had to recommend just, unless you really know SEO or blogging, just hire someone. Or again, that is a skill. That is a business, someone's career path. You can't be everything.
Yeah, so you can't be everything.
Yeah, even the website, I had hired someone to develop it, and it was taking forever. And so I ended up having to have it as a sunk cost and then do my own, which I shouldn't have done. But it was like, I just needed it out there because I didn't have a full-time job.
Yeah.
And recommend it. Sort of like build your website, build your following, build your base, still be learning.
Yep.
And be charging, but just do it part-time. And then when you have enough base, email list, a ton of, your clients are repeating, then you can go full-time into it.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. That's the way to do it for sure.
Yeah.
I agree.
So you're sort of retired now and you're keeping your favorites, which is envious. When you're booking and you're booking a wedding or booking another shoot and you're, whoa, this is a red flag for me. I am not going to be a happy camper taking this client. Tell the audience if you have anything that sort of really red flags you. My radar's up. I need to not book this client.
I do. It's just so simple. But when I get on the phone with somebody, if there's a lot of tension and a lot of silence and talking over each other, it's just vibing with somebody, I can tell right away. My favorite brides has been immediately we get on the phone, we've never talked to each other before, and it's like friends. And then there's other you're just not vibing with. And I'll still book them. I would, but they would always turn out to be maybe a little bit more trouble than anyone else. I think you can tell a lot just by the first phone call.
So me, I have a phonephobia. So I
actually do too. But I hate it. I just felt like it was necessary.
I think if I was weddings, I would have to get over it.
Yeah.
Because it's definitely, you have to be able to do that. But for me, it's sort of, I can tell by email. I can someone's like, I just got 2, I should use it as an example. 2, one was, I'm due in July looking for rates. That's it. And then this other one, I love your work. I love how natural it is. I love everything. It's light. It's just exactly what I want. I just had my baby. Can you get me in? Like,
huge difference.
Which one? Huge difference. Who's going to respect me more and who's going to respect my process? So, but not saying I won't book the other one, but it might be a little bit less. My spidey sense is up. Okay, I'm going to see if I, throughout the process of like, is this going to be more work than it needs to be?
Yep, absolutely.
We chatted before we came on the podcast, but we were saying that, you wish you'd had a mentor early on. What would you say, what is the best advice someone had given you?
I don't know. I think I have my own good advice now. Like I told you in the beginning, I didn't have anybody. There was me and there was one older gentleman. He was probably in his 50s and he did seniors, families. There was no one in town doing weddings. No one. Can you imagine that? No one. So that's why I really ended up going into weddings, was because it was just free for the taking, But I never had anyone to give me advice. I really, truly don't remember anyone ever giving me good advice or any advice at all. I think that taking the client you have in front of you and putting literally everything into them. So forget it. Like when you're working with a client, forget about marketing, forget about social media, put everything you have into that one client, because the better impression you make on them, or the more they love you, the more they're going to tell their friends. I used to send each bride a little gift, a personalized gift. I'd get to kind of know who they were, and I'd put something really personal together for them. And that would immediately go on Facebook. They would tag my business. So there's my marketing right there. And all I did was focus on my client. So I think that's probably my best advice, is to put everything you have into the client in front of you. You don't always have to be thinking about the next client. If you're thinking about the client you have now.
I absolutely love that. Over the last couple of years, I've been shooting less. And what I realize is, wow, I'm on a shoot. I am in that shoot and I'm in the zen. And I miss that because I'm so focused on that shoot. You reminded me, I don't know why you reminded me of this, but when I first started, I remember going to Adorama in New York City, and Tamara Lackey, who's an amazing family photographer, was speaking there. And she said something about, well, after I give everything, and then after every shoot, I'm so drained, but I know I've done a good job. And I was at that time, had a really bad habit of, okay, well, I need to go to Starbucks and McDonald's before every shoot for my energy because I'm so exhausted. I did get off that. The pandemic stopped it, but I was like, I need my Starbucks. It became such a clutch.
I had things like that too, that I had to do before. Yeah.
If I don't plan enough to be able to get my Starbucks before the shoot, then I feel like something's going to go wrong, which is...
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But it made me realize I'm okay if I'm exhausted after the shoot because I've given everything to it. And that's okay. It's not that you're unfit and eating too many McDonald's, Jane, but that's another story.
I think it's so funny how photography attracts all the same. I feel like we are all the exact same. A little introverted, ADHD quite often, perfectionistic, like we're all the same. It's so interesting how I don't know any other career that attracts such a niche personality.
Yeah.
But I feel like we really are all the same.
Yeah, I think that we are. And the ADHD part is definitely, that's basically the reason why I got diagnosed in February of 2020. And I was like, I'm going to create software.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
This is why I don't like my business. This is why I don't like my business. All of these different softwares, I'm going to make all in one. And I'm just going to do it. Because
you did it.
Actually, it was pretty much the best diagnosis I ever got. Because that's why everything makes sense. And it's just...
Yep.
And I will say, actually, the best piece of advice my dad actually gave me was, and it's to do with the quality of your work, because I just would always beat myself up on it. And he said, and I think he gave me a quote, and I think it was Sting from The Police, dating myself now. Every musician hates their first album. And I kept saying that in my head. Really? You're going to keep getting better.
Yeah.
And so that led me, and I don't know if a photographer said it or somebody said it, but it's the only photographer that you need to be better than is the one you were yesterday.
Yeah,
that's it.
That's so true.
It's so true. And don't compete. If you're walking away from looking at social media, I'm so grateful that I didn't start during social media, because
me too.
I would have not probably made it, because there's so
I would have quit.
There's so many photographers out there that you look at and you're like, oh my gosh, they're so amazing. They've been doing it a lot longer than you, or they're a shoot.
Right.
That stay in your own lane. I say that.
Well, no one thinks about the fact that people are thinking that about you too. There's probably somebody out there who's, maybe not a photographer yet.
It's all right. I'm not the best photographer. You know what I am? I'm the best photographer for my clients. That's it. I'm not perfectly technical. I'm not perfectly lit. And I don't claim to be. But I'm the best photographer for my clients.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I am a great editor, but I'm not a great photographer. It just is what it is. It's fine. It's totally fine.
Oh, yeah.
You don't have to be the best at everything to be successful. You don't have to.
You don't.
You'll be fine.
A little bit better at the business side because it's a business and you won't need to get the clients. That's the issue is like how to get the clients, but no best because it's all subjective.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree.
Right? People are like, look at my work and be like, oh, it's so flat. I'm like, you know what? My clients like it and I love it. I don't care. I don't care if it's flat and
don't hire me then.
Brown lighting. I don't care. And usually it's the photographers. Okay, go ahead. Criticize me. I've been doing business for 14 years.
Yeah, exactly. Brush it off.
So let's get into a funny shoot. What's your funniest shoot, worst shoot, or did that really happen, Rachel? Like, you know, like when you're like, holy moly.
Yep, there is one thing. So I didn't have to think about it long to come up with the very worst. It was the very worst shoot I had ever had. Well, actually, I'm going to hit the back. It was the worst moment. So it was a couple of years ago. I live in Michigan, so it's lake effect weather. We can get 10 inches of snow in like an hour, just out of the blue. So I'm shooting a winter wedding, and there had been no snow all year. No snow at all. The bride was praying for snow. She really wanted it. And so I was kind of hoping for it too, but I thought it's not going to happen. It wasn't in the forecast. So it took place down by like a lake. And lake effect snow is cold. It's very cold. I just didn't plan properly, I guess, and I left the house in these tiny little slip-on shoes. They were really comfortable, but they were not snow gear whatsoever. And when I went into the wedding, it wasn't snowing yet. And then when we came out from the ceremony, there was literally like 4 inches of snow. Couldn't believe it. The bride was thrilled. Everybody was so happy that she got her wish. Okay, this is going to be okay. It has to be okay. So I didn't have anything in my car. And then I thought the bride is wearing heels, so she's going to be cold too. But they wanted specific photos down by the water, and it was so cold, and there was literally 4 inches of snow, and I'm wearing these tiny little fabric shoes. And so it got to the point where I couldn't feel my feet. I was holding back tears, and they kept wanting to walk down further and further away from the car. And I'm like, okay, it's going to be all right. And I just kept holding it in. It was the bride, the groom, and the full bridal party that we were with. And at one point, I just started bawling. It came out of nowhere. I was not expecting to cry, and I just started bawling. It was like one of those things where I didn't have any control over it whatsoever. And everybody's like, oh my gosh, what happened? Are you okay? My feet, I'm so sorry. I'm going to be okay. The groom offered to carry me back. It was and of course I declined. No, absolutely not. And I was just so mad at myself for one, not planning. I could have just put boots in the car just in case. And for crying, it was horrible. But the moral of the story is just plan ahead, bring whatever you can.
Have a pair of boots in the car. Yeah. I even have thought about the bridesmaids. Did they have boots? Or trying to think of
some of them did. Yep. Some of the bridesmaids did have boots. The bride didn't, but I think that she was just so hyped up from the day that she wasn't feeling anything.
Yeah, she was just... I'm trying to think. I probably cried on a shoot, but I've probably blacked it out. Yeah. I'm trying to think. Yeah. I'm sure I have. Yeah.
It's hard not to black out. I think about it and get a little sweaty and get a little bit fidgety even just thinking about it. How did I cry? Your body just sometimes takes over.
Yeah, and I'm a crier too.
Yep.
I can get away with it. I'll be like, I just cry at anything. I do not like being cold. And so I would...
No, me either.
I would have probably cried, but...
Yeah, it was painful.
So you started on a Nikon. You still shooting on a Nikon?
Nope. I guess I technically started on a Nikon because that's what I learned on, but I've never owned a Nikon. But I went from Canon to Sony and then back to Canon. And I actually loved my Sony pictures it produced, but it died halfway through its lifespan, so I just got put a bad taste in my mouth, but I did love the Sony photos. So then I went back to Canon. Now I shoot a Canon R5 and mirrorless. Yeah, mirrorless, yeah.
See, I'm still old school DSLR, and I know.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, I know. I just can't. I just like the color, and I've shot friends. Actually, I did shoot, one time I was at an event, and it was not full of photographers except this one photographer she was doing headshots there for everybody that was there. And I saw her face and she was just about to cry. She was supposed to be writing down the names of the people and then her computer died. And I'm looking at her and I'm like, are you okay? And she's like, no, I can't find no. And the line for the headshots was crazy. And I'm going to take over. I'll do headshots for you. Just go.
That was so nice.
The boss was right there. But it was also the Sony. So I also wanted to play around with the Sony, which I loved. I thought it was great. And then she comes back. It took her 5 minutes and the line's gone. And she's, are they coming back? And I was like, no, I'm a kid photographer. I can do headshots in like my
Wow.
Like,
you saved her life that day.
Yeah, and then people were looking at me like, why is she taking photos? Because I was an attendee and I'm a photographer. Do you want to look at it? And they're like,
yeah.
You're a good photographer. You should be a photographer.
Yeah. I think that's amazing that you DSLR. There's nothing like a DSLR RAW. There's nothing.
No, the RAWs I like.
It would be so sad if you went to mirrorless. Don't do it. Hold out as long as you can.
I'm holding out. I mean, the thing about it is they're not releasing new ones and they're not supporting DSLRs. And the only thing is my hands. I do have arthritis in my hands from holding that beast. And I like my 24-70 too much to go a lighter lens. I have my 2 babies and I can't get rid of them.
Yeah, good for you. Good for you.
Well, this has been so amazing. So tell our audience where they can find you. And I'm going to put it in the show notes. So if you forget, I will.
Yep.
But it's been so amazing talking to you.
You too, Jane. I'm so glad that we finally got to actually meet. Our big thing is our Facebook group. So it's Reverie and Oak Creative Profiles and Presets on Facebook. We have a YouTube channel. It's also just Reverie and Oak, reverieandoak.com. I think that's it. Reverie and Oak on Instagram. Reverie and Oak anywhere you go.
Why Reverie and Oak?
So I never planned on selling my presets, even though that's really what I've always loved is the editing, not the shooting. It was COVID when I decided that this is what I wanted to do. And I just thought, I'm not a big name photographer. If I name it after myself, no one's going to know. Because there's like, who's that, And so I started writing down words that I wanted the brand to represent. What did I want the brand to be? And the word dreams was in there and the word strength. So then I just went to the thesaurus and started looking for alternate words. So that's where Reverie is dreams and oak tree symbolized strength. So that's where that came from. Yeah.
This is amazing. Yes, everyone definitely check out your Facebook group. I'm going to go to your YouTube channel. I can't wait till you come out with more and more education. I think it will be so good for the industry. And you're just
excited.
So I appreciate it, Rachel.
Thank you for having me.